Hi everyone, Flavia here, and welcome to day 6 of Spellbinders 2025 Crafty Advent Calendar series. I have been having a lot of fun counting down to Christmas with this gorgeous calendar, and in case you have missed any of my previous videos for this series, make sure to click on the link in the description box down below. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and open door number 6, which is right over here. This is a very long one, and usually when the door is this long, like this number 6, it means that the surprise inside is a mini embossing folder. So that's my guess for today. Okay, let's take a pic. So here is a picture of the content inside, and it definitely looks like it's an embossing folder. Yep, it is a mini embossing folder. So here is a closer look at the embossing folder, and this is about 6 by 2 inches. So the contents for the Crafty Advent calendar are not Christmas themed at all, even though it is an Advent calendar. However, that doesn't mean that we cannot use the supplies to also create projects for the holidays, which is what I am going to try to do today with this embossing folder. So I have these 2 boxes filled with die-cut pieces. These are leftovers from previous projects, and these are all of the Christmas themed elements. So I think I'm gonna begin by going over what I have for some inspiration, and then I will move on to using today's surprise. Okay, so here are some of the elements that I think I'm gonna add to this note card, such as some Christmas ornaments over here and an acorn. Then I have some really small poinsettias. I also have some berries over here and some leaves and branches and sprigs over here. And I think I used different sets by Spellbinders to cut out all of these pieces. And let me see if I can find them so I can show you. Okay, so here are some of my die sets, some of my favorites actually for making note cards for the holidays. So this one is the Spellbinders Skating into the Holidays die set, and this set has wonderful plates, and I used this at the bottom to cut out some of these branches, and it also has this large plate to cut out a poinsettia. However, I used a different set to cut out these ones that are way smaller. Regarding this set, I also used these plates over here to cut out these berries. So this is the Skating to the Holidays, and I think I also used this one. So this is the Spellbinders Christmas Wreath add-on die set, and regarding this one, I think I used this plate to cut out the smaller poinsettias that I might use today. And my all-time favorite, this is the Spellbinders Christmas Wonder die set, which is a set. I think it was released as part of the Spellbinders Envelope of Wonder collection, and with this set we get many different plates to cut out many different Christmas elements such as ornaments, gingerbread, a bell, presents, candy cane, and so much more. And I did use this plate, actually this one, along with this one, to cut out these Christmas ornaments, and I also used this plate over here to create this other element. So this is what I think I'm gonna use. And actually for the sentiment, I might use plates included in this die set, the Christmas wreath add-on. Here we have these 4 plates that we can use to cut out a sentiment with a shadow or not. And the sentiment reads Season's Greetings. So this is what I might use for today's note cards. So let's now set all of these aside and begin playing with this mini embossing folder. So I am actually considering dry embossing this gorgeous shimmery black cardstock by Spellbinders. Let's begin dry embossing this panel. To do so, I will be using my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine. So to create my sandwich, I'm gonna add platform A, and this platform actually has the instructions to build the sandwich. So to build a sandwich for a standard embossing folder, we need this platform. Then we're gonna add platform B, which is this white one, and next I'm gonna add the embossing folder with the cardstock inside, and I'm gonna line up this side of my cardstock with the left side of the embossing design. Now I'm gonna place this on top of my platform and add a clear C cutting plate. Now we're gonna check out the result, which is gorgeous. So now I am trying to line up the previously embossed design with this side of the embossing folder in hopes that I can get a continuous pattern. So I'm gonna place these 2 platforms back on my die cutting machine. I'm gonna add the embossing folder with the cardstock inside. This time I'm gonna place it sideways, and now I'm gonna add the clear plate on top. However, this time, instead of adding the clear plate over the entire embossing folder like I did before, I am actually going to offset this clear plate, because if I cover this side of the embossing folder, it might give me a harsh line, which is what I don't want. So this clear plate is only going to cover the dry embossing design on the embossing folder. So here is a closer look. We still get a line over here, but it is not so bad. Actually, it's not even a line, it is a gap. And I think I like the result, so we're gonna keep on repeating this process. So again, I'm gonna add the embossing folder with the cardstock on top of my platform. Then I'm gonna add the clear cutting plate on top of the embossing folder, but it's not going to completely cover the embossing folder. This is only gonna go as far as the design on the folder, which is right about here. Let's take another look. Cool. I love it. I mean, it's not as straight as it should be, but I think I can make this work. So this is how you make a very tiny embossing folder cover a bigger panel. By the way, this panel measures 5.5 by 4.25 inches, and I'm gonna use this to create an A2 size note card. So now I need to trim this panel. I am going to try to trim this off just to make this look, to make these lines straight. Okay, yes, I fixed it. So it definitely looks like by trimming it off, I made the patterns and these 2 lines look straighter than before. So I am really happy with this panel. Now, using a regular piece of cardstock, I'm gonna create 2 A2 size note cards. So this cardstock measures 8.5 by 11 inches, and I'm gonna score this in half at 5.5. I'm going to add a score line on both sides of the paper. Then I'm gonna flip this one more time and fold it in half. And then we're gonna cut this in half at 4.25 inches. And this is how we make 2 A2 size top folding note cards. Now I can go ahead and add my dry embossed panel to the front of this black cardstock. Actually, before I glue this dry embossed panel to the note card, I am actually going to glue this on top of two panels that I cut out from regular black cardstock. And I'm gonna do this just so this dry embossed panel has a little bit of dimension. However, if you don't like adding dimension to your note card, you can definitely skip this step. So now that I have added the two panels in the back of my dry embossed panel, I'm gonna go ahead and glue this to the front of my black A2 size note card. Once that is done, I can go ahead and begin adding the die cut elements. So now I'm gonna begin playing around with these die cut pieces. So I'm not gluing anything in place just yet. I'm just gonna place them in different places until I'm sure I like the placement of each die cut piece, and once that looks good, I will go ahead and glue them in place with strong glue. So regarding these large ornaments, I actually wanted to have some dimension, so I'm gonna add square adhesive in the back. So these two pieces are gonna overlap a little bit, and now I'm gonna begin tucking in the die cut berries and branches. And for those, I'm gonna use liquid adhesive. Okay, so these are all the elements that I think I want to add to the front of this note card. I could have added way more pieces, however, I did not want to completely cover this beautiful dry embossed panel. So we're gonna go with just the seasons, greetings, die cut sentiment on the bottom right corner and a few elements on the bottom left corner of this panel. Now inside, I'm gonna add two white panels for two reasons. One, to make this note card feel heavier, because I did use a lighter weight cardstock to make this A2 size card base. And the other reason is because I want to create a brighter space to write a personal message later. However, if you do have a white gel pen, you don't really need to add a white panel inside. You can just write your message with a white gel pen, which looks really nice. So now to make these berries very shimmery, I'm gonna go over them with my Nuvo Shimmer pen. I don't know if it's showing, but this pen adds a lot of sparkle and I love using it. So now, as a final touch, I am going to add a few flat back rhinestones to the front of this note card around the die cut elements, and I'm using two colors of rhinestones, red and green. And what I did first was temporarily placing them where I think I want them to go. Sometimes I really struggle with the placement of embellishments, so I like to first place them without any liquid glue, and then once I can see everything in place and I like the result, I like the placement, then I can go ahead and actually adhere each rhinestone to the front of my note card with liquid glue, which is what I am going to do now because I am really happy with the placement of these embellishments. To do so, I'm using a wax pencil, one of my most used crafty tools, and this is just helping me pick up the rhinestones so I can add glue to the cardstock. Okay, so here is a closer look at the final note card. For the envelope, I decided to use a black envelope and I added two thin cardstock strips, same colors of cardstock as the colors that I used to make this note card. Inside it is blank, so we have plenty of room to write a special message, and here is a closer look at all of the amazing details. Christmas. So this is all that I have for today, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video and felt inspired to create. Remember to tune in tomorrow for the reveal of the surprise behind door number 7. By the way, let me know in the comments box down below if you are also counting down to Christmas with any type of Advent calendar. I hope you have a wonderful day, take care, and see you again soon.